All right, well, thanks to everybody for joining us. Today we have Amy Stewart talking about her series, her educational series, How to Create a Book Video, and answering your questions. Hopefully, I'm sure a lot of you watched the videos already. If you haven't already watched it, definitely do. It's free, it's extremely helpful. And, we've been saying it's great to do things that help right now during the current situation in the world, things that you have the time to do, things that you can do digitally from home, but things that are also good skills to learn to always use moving forward when the world gets back to normal. So we're really happy about that. And we're so happy to have Amy with us. She's very generous with her time, and she knows all about this, and she's really good at demystifying some things that people are probably afraid to do or assume they can't do when it comes to something like editing a video. But it's really not as difficult as it sounds, and it's great to have her walk us all through it. So I'm going to turn it over to Amy. A lot of you have submitted questions already, so she's going to respond to those that you submitted in advance. And if you come up with more questions, look for that Q&A chat box that's here in Zoom and send the questions in, and we'll get through as many of those as we can at the end.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks everybody for coming to this. And I'll just say that if you've watched the videos, you may already know this, but one of the thing that really motivated me to do this is when the shutdown started, I was feeling like I want to find ways to make good use of this time, but I also want to be thinking long term, like what are some sort of projects I've had on the back burner for a while that I can finish up that might be useful now, but will also be useful going forward. And in particular, because I write a series right now, I'm writing a series of novels. What I've learned is when you write a series, sometimes the books tend to sort of get lost, like the third one or the fourth one. And I think people forget, like, wow, this one's really about World War I, and this one's really about this. And I've got a lot I could talk about concerning each book, but where do you go to find that? So I decided that I would finish this project of making videos for every book. And there have been a lot of points in my career where having a book video has really helped with publishers and marketing and different things. But what really drove it home for me was just as I was in the middle of doing all this, I got an email from a book club that I was going to have a Skype with. And they said, oh, we can't get together. We can't do Skype because of the shutdown. By any chance, do you just have like a video about your book and everyone can watch it at home and then we can talk about it amongst ourselves on the phone? And I was like, why, yes, I do have a video. So it was kind of cool that I had an immediate use for it. But anyway, yeah, all of those are available on YouTube. You probably have the link. Some of you may have already seen the whole series. But let me get into some of the questions because there's some really good ones. And the first one was, what about ensuring equitable accessibility to readers? What can we do? And so accessibility online is a huge issue, making sure that all your stuff, your website, everything is disabled accessible. And there are some good technical solutions to that. So fortunately with YouTube, you have a couple of options for things like closed captioning for people who are hearing impaired. They will attempt to automatically do closed captioning. So when you upload your video, you'll see there's some settings for this. They literally just changed the settings today, but you can go in and find it. And you can try their automatic closed captioning and see how they do and maybe make some corrections. Or if you'd rather just type them yourself, they've got an option where you can add your own closed captioning. So that's definitely something you can do. Somebody asked about tools for non-Apple people. And yes, I made this class using iMovie, which is free Apple video editing app available for the iPad, but there are tools for Windows. There's Windows Movie Maker, which is also free and will let you do basically the same thing. So like I would say, go ahead and watch my video editing section because I think it will help you understand the concepts of what you can do. It's gonna look a little different in Windows Movie Maker, but a lot of it'll be kind of the same, and you do have the, and it's also free. But then also Adobe, if you happen to use any of the suite of Adobe creative products, I know there's an Adobe video editor as well. I haven't used it, but people love it. Like people love all of the Adobe graphic design products. So that's another option. And somebody asked about 4K video. I would say do the highest resolution you can, as long as it's not a huge memory hog for your device. So I film in the highest resolution possible, and I export my videos at 1080 rather than 720, so a little bit better than kind of the standard format. So definitely use the best resolution camera you have and record at a high resolution. So a similar question about smartphones, somebody just asked about the quality. And generally, I'm just going to hold up my phone here. Generally, the front-facing camera is not as good, and the rear-facing camera is better. And that's true for an iPad as well. So use the best thing you have. And the newer your phone, the better the quality is. So this is a kind of an interesting question. When translating a book to video, what's one key task to keep in mind? And I think the key here is to give the reader something that they can't already find out about your book. So don't spend a lot of time on your bio, which is something that they can find elsewhere. Don't spend a lot of time on just the copy that's on the back of the book summarizing the plot. Like, what's that extra something that only you as the author can tell people? And of course, you can make more than one video. So if there's like several interesting aspects to your book, it might be you do different little 1-minute or 2-minute videos that give people a little cool behind the scenes information about your book that they can't find anywhere else. Suggestions, there's several questions that are kind of the same about suggestions as to where to post the videos, how to attract attention, how do I get attention for this video with so much else out there. This is just one more tool in marketing your book. And I do have a segment in the YouTube class on what I do with my videos. And it's a big range of stuff. Just simply uploading it to YouTube, uploading it to Facebook, uploading it to Goodreads, and putting it on your website is kind of a lot, because it gives a lot of different people an opportunity to encounter the video. And I found these to be so useful for media interviews. Somebody's going to interview me, they watch a 3-minute video, they have a better idea what questions to ask me. Book clubs really like them. I told a story in the class about how my publisher showed one of my videos at sales conference, which typically happens 6 months before the book comes out. And it completely changed their marketing plan for the book once everyone understood what the book was about a little bit better. So there's a lot of different places to put it, but I would emphasize the goal here is not to just get a huge number of eyeballs on your video. You know, it's okay if you don't have 10,000 views on your video. The goal is it's one more thing that you can point people to or send people to help them quickly get a grip on what the book is about. Let's see, and again, like, so what's the earliest or latest a video should be created for a book? I would do something like this as soon as I have a book cover, a finalized book cover that I'm sure isn't going to get changed, but maybe even earlier. You know, so the way my publisher works is they have a pre-launch. I'm blanking on the name of it, but anyway, pre-launch is a full year before the book comes out. That's the first time they introduce the book to sales. And then actual launch is about 6 months before the book comes out, depending on exactly when the pub date is. So I'd be talking to my editor and saying, you know, I'm going to be making this video anyway, and do you want me to make one that you can use at sales conference, or you can use for marketing meetings just to show people? I know we don't have a book cover yet, but I can do everything else, and I can drop the book cover in when you get it to me later. I mean, this video editing software is so easy to use that it's totally fine to just drop that in later. So that's the lead time issue, is if your publisher wants it. And remember too that if your publisher is pitching to long lead publications like print magazines, they're also out doing that 6 months before the book comes out. And so if a video would be helpful for pitching you to a TV show or a magazine or something else that's got a longer lead, then maybe they'd like to have it for that. Oh, and somebody asked about music options. And yeah, there are places where you can get copyright-free music to add. I know that YouTube has a lot of just built-in options. So they already have a whole built-in music studio that you can use for that. And there are some, and you would just have to Google this, because I didn't put music in mine. I wasn't really thinking about it. But if you just sort of, you know, Google copyright-free music for videos, there are a couple of big marketplaces that sell music clips that you can add. So yes, you could add music. I would warn you, make sure that the music is at a quiet level and is not more annoying to listen to than it is helpful, for sure. Yeah, so, and again, somebody asked about using a popular song in a video. You can't. Copyright restrictions. For the same reason people can't use your book to promote their product. Copyright restrictions. Somebody asked about lighting, and it does help to have really good natural lighting. I'm talking to you right now from my office, but I did not move my camera around to my like little perfect spot where I make my videos. So I've got kind of bright light hitting my face on one side and it's darker on the other. And ideally, you want to fill in and balance those lights. So in the video, I showed a picture of a kind of big bright LED light that I have that I bounce off the wall next to me. So it's not shining in my face, it's shining on a white wall, and I'm getting a brighter, more diffuse light in my normal spot where I would sit to shoot a video. But lighting, it really does help a lot. And there were a couple other questions. There was some questions about monetizing and advertising. So can you monetize your book video? No, I don't think so. This is really just a marketing tool. I'm not really thinking of this as something where people are paying for its content. I mean, I teach online, so I also do online I teach writing online on Skillshare, which I get paid for. And that's a very different thing. You know, that's, in fact, this class, this video, how to make a book video class, is something that I also teach online on Skillshare and get paid for. But I put it on YouTube for free because I wanted everybody to have it. But this is more just kind of a marketing thing. And in terms of paying for the tools and the advertising, how do we pay for the tools and the advertising? Well, I'm not paying for advertising with these videos. I'm not paying for anyone to see them. I'm just putting them out there, making them available, and having it be another tool that I use. And for the most part, I mean, if you have an iPad, you can do this, and everything else you need is free. I did buy a few extra things. I talk in the video about a special microphone, a tripod, but that's because I also teach online. So I have other reasons why I want that equipment that you don't necessarily need. And I show you some other options for how you can do that. And this is a really good question. What's the #1 thing in a video that grabs readers' attention? And really, I think it's that kind of surprising, unexpected thing that people don't already know about your book. So I wrote a book that's set in France, and I shot a little video while I was in France, not knowing how I was going to use it. But now I can use that in the clip, and it's kind of cool because you can see the place where the events take place. And there's this sort of funny moment in my book about these French goats, and I have this little hilarious video clip of the goats talking to me, and they totally have French accents. So like having something kind of cool and unexpected like that might make it more likely for people to go, oh, that's so interesting, I want to share this with my friends. So it's a nice thing to do. And then one last question on here, and then maybe we'll move to the other questions people have posted. But somebody says, I've just published a meditation educational book. I was wondering, should I do a sample meditation? And I love this idea. Like particularly if you're a nonfiction writer and you've done something like a meditation book or a cookbook, you could make so many videos. Like you could sort of do this for the rest of your life. You could do a 1 or 2 minute video that's just kind of an overview of the book, but then you could also do an additional one where it's like, let's go through a sample meditation together. Let's cook a recipe together. Let's whatever. So I love the idea, especially with nonfiction, of taking a book that's got a lot of different ideas to it and maybe making 2 or 3, or who knows, maybe even a little series of videos about all the different aspects of that book. But even with fiction, you can do that. So if you've written a contemporary crime fiction novel and it's set in Miami, you could do one video that's kind of about the locations in Miami where the events take place, and another video that's about the time you did a ride-along with the police for research. Like, you know, anybody who writes fiction knows that there's always like 20 different interesting little kind of rabbit holes you go down, and any of those might be cool to do a video of if you've got that kind of time. So let's see, are there other questions that we should dive into?
Yeah, we have several questions.
Great, let's do it.
Great. Okay. First, I should point out in the chat box, Jane Friedman recommended a good source for royalty-free music,
Oh, hi, Jane. Thank
johnnydev.com.
you.
Yeah, yeah. So that's great. Yeah, good to look around for music, I'm sure.
Yes.
Um, Jennifer asks, is it too late to use a video as part of her launch if her book is coming out in August? So what kind of time frame do you think is good for?
Oh, listen, it's never too late. For this little shutdown project, I made videos for the books that I published in 2001 and 2004. So I'm thinking about my backlist and like, hey, those books are still out there for sale. What can I do to give them a little bit of a boost? So at any time is fine. And in fact, that's kind of what I love about doing this now is I can really think about my backlist and like, do any of these books need a little help? Because I've got time on my hands. I could be doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All
So you're
right.
not too late. You're not too late.
Right, right. Okay, Betty asks if you have recommendations for titling the video. Maybe if there's like search engine concerns or just ease of looking it up.
Yeah, I keep my titles extremely simple so that they will pop up in search. So generally my titles are just the title of the book, or it might be, you know, Amy Stewart on Girl Waits with Gun. So it's both my name and the book title in the video. But yeah, I would just give it the book title.
Mm-hmm. All right. Eileen asks if you can incorporate a voice recording into the video, such as an interview that is audio only.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so if you watch my editing, if you watch the editing section, you'll see a little moment where I record a video. I mean, I record some audio to play over, I think it was a video clip. But you could also drop in audio, and while that audio is playing, people are just looking at a photograph that you drop in, or some video footage. If you have video footage that people don't need to be hearing the audio of, and you want them to hear other audio, it's super easy to do that. And I didn't demonstrate that specifically, but it's the same process as dropping in a picture or dropping in a video clip to drop in an audio clip. The principles are all the same, so you'll see it there.
Great. Yeah, that makes sense. Or you could get fancy and do a little Ken Burns thing with the shifting photograph.
Yes,
Yeah,
the Ken Burns slow pan over the image while the audio is playing is classic.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Michelle asks, how do you suggest doing a book video for a book with two authors?
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, well, so I mean, depending on the subject of the book, it might be a thing where one author records part of it and sends that to the other author, and they record their part and stitch the two together. You can't be in the same place right now with your co-author, but if there's going to be a time in the near future when the two of you can be physically in the same room with one another, or just generally speaking for the future, then it would be great if the two of you could do a sit down together. But otherwise, I would recommend that you each record a separate clip and then just put those together.
Yes, that sounds good. I wonder, would it be helpful if you used the same camera if you're recording in different places so that the video kind of looks similar, of similar quality?
Well, I mean, yeah, ideally you want the video quality to be as similar as, and the audio quality too, because it can be pretty jarring to have the audio quality go from being really excellent to, you know, not so good. So yeah, ideally you're trying to make the technology be as similar as possible so the video has a cohesive feel. I mean, the other thing, of course, if you're two authors, is you could always do two different videos that come at the book from different angles. It sort of depends on the role of each author, I think, in the book as well, how you want to put it together.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, let's see. Jamie says, can you say more about what you're including in videos that would be helpful to get speaking engagements?
Oh, yeah. Well, so yeah, I do a lot of speaking gigs. I'm on the road kind of, well, not this year, but usually I'm on the road kind of April through October, and I give a lot of talks at libraries, universities, and these are groups with budgets. And when they're bringing in an author and they're paying for it and they're selling tickets and people are paying $10 or $20 for a ticket, they want to know that they're going to get a good talk. They want to know that they're not going to get an author who's just going to stand up there and kind of mumble through a reading. So what I try to think about with my book videos is, in a way, they're kind of like condensed versions of my book talks, really. So what I'm doing when I'm giving a talk is I've got PowerPoint behind me with just images, no text. I'm not doing like PowerPoint, like bullet points or anything, just pictures. And I'm standing up there telling stories, and I'm sort of clicking through the pictures, and I'm not looking at notes, so it's very much off the top of my head, but I have the pictures to kind of remind me about what story I'm telling. So you can see how that can be condensed down to a video, right? I can do a 3-minute version or a 2-minute version of my library talk, and it's just me, like you see me right now, more or less, talking head style. And then the same pictures that I'm using for my PowerPoints, I'm dropping in and voicing over them, so that if you've seen that little 3-minute video, you have a general sense of what the spirit of the talk is going to be. The other thing about booking talks is they kind of want to make sure you're not going to say anything too controversial. You know, people like things to be politically neutral, and this comes up for me sometimes. I was asked to give a talk about a book I wrote called Flower Confidential, which is about the global flower industry. And they sort of said, well, this goes without, it's hardly even necessary for us to say this because you're talking about flowers, but we really want this talk to be very politically neutral. We have a very divided kind of audience. And I said, you know, it's not all that politically neutral, because I'm talking about issues of climate change, and I'm talking about issues of immigration and global agribusiness. There's, you know, so there's some stuff in this talk. And so if they can kind of watch your video and get a sense of the general tone and the content, it's also going to be telling them something about how the talk leans. Is it kid friendly? Or is it more for adults? You know, it gives a sense of the tone of what your presentation might be. So whenever I'm making a book video, I am thinking about people watching this. I want to make sure that the video gives them kind of the same experience that the talk is going to give them.
Okay, great. Yeah, yeah. I've had a couple of people ask where to find the class. So I just popped the URL for the YouTube series into the chat box. If you're using your computer to join, you'll see a chat with a little chat bubble icon, and you can click on that to see the chat happening there. And some more people have given recommendations for music, royalty-free music and sound effects. So that's cool. Thank you.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Okay. Someone asks, if you have no iPad, can we do a video with an iPhone and computer? Yeah, you can do. You don't have to have a dedicated camera device. A smartphone works, right?
Yeah, a smartphone works. The newer the smartphone, the better your camera is going to be. And yeah, you'll see me talk a little bit about what kind of gadgets you can use. I mean, I'm talking to you right now on a webcam that's actually got a pretty high quality lens in it. So some people have better sort of versions of webcams, and that would work too.
Mm-hmm. All right. Someone says, Carolyn says she wants to build her platform, so she wants to produce a video that would encourage readers to sign up for her newsletter. Mm-hmm. So for multiple purposes besides selling the book. Do you have thoughts on
that? And right. I think that's an important thing to say, is that I made this class to teach people how to make book videos, but really it's useful for any kind of talking head style video you might want to make. I mean, my husband and I also own a bookstore. And if you also happen to be a small business owner, you can use all this same technology and all these same ideas to make some kind of little, you know, commercial or a little marketing tool for your brick and mortar store, or your landscaping business if you're a garden writer, but you're also a professional landscaper. Like, it'll work for anything else. And absolutely for something like newsletter signups, or you want to promote classes you teach, or you give, I know authors who give, you know, tours of France because their books are set in France, and you could use this kind of technology to make videos to talk about that. So yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Sally asked, she thinks that the backstory of how she discovered information for a book is just as interesting as the story. Is that something you would include? Uh,
Yes.
and yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Everybody's interested in that stuff. And again, those are the things that people can't find out any other way. And very often it's those weird backstories that those are the things that your readers will tell each other about. It'll be like, oh, I read this amazing book, and the crazy thing is that the author found this out because blah 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 happened. And people love to tell each other stories like that. So absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I think you had said at some point, if you're just reading the description or your bio, that's stuff that they can find anywhere else. You should
Yeah.
tell a story like that. That's great.
Yeah, yeah. I have some friends who wrote an insect guide to the Pacific Northwest. So good for them. It's a useful field guide to the bugs of the Pacific Northwest. That's fine. But what they never told their publisher is that every bug that they photographed for that book, they raised from eggs inside their house so they could get perfect photographs of a flawless little insect, because bugs get beaten up pretty quick when they're out in the wild. And I'm like, wait, you did what? And they're like, oh yeah, we raised like 500 different species of insects in plastic buckets inside our house, and we couldn't go on vacation for 2 years because no one knew how to take care of all these. And I'm like, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard of. Like, you need to tell people this story. Like, it would be so cool to have a video about that, because that's insane. So yeah, any kind of behind the scenes stuff like that, that's what people want to know.
Absolutely. Mary Louise asks if you have any specific recommendations for a book of poetry, and also a second question: what length do you think the video should be?
Oh yeah, that's interesting. So length, people have very short attention spans. So if you can get in and out in a minute, great. It does not have to be long. And I think with poetry, I would say, again, what inspires you, what motivates you, what's the driving force behind your work is probably the thing to do with a video, as opposed to just, say, reading from your work. I think, you know, for all of us, reading from our work is a challenge, and probably the thing that's more interesting, that people will be more interested in sitting down and watching a video about, is that behind the scenes, what inspires it, what speaks to me, and maybe you quote a line or two from a poem just to sort of connect it to what you're talking about in terms of the inspiration, without it being just a straight reading.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Marcia asks about whether it's giving away too much for free. She's got a self-help book and she's wanting for decreased sales to show how to implement the techniques that are in the book. So, like the meditation thing we talked about, is probably a good way to do it.
Yeah, I think there is a good way to do it. And I mean, I have some experience with this. I wrote 6 nonfiction books, and while they weren't specifically how-to books, I mean, I'll give you one example. I wrote a book called The Drunken Botanist, which is about all the plants that we turn into alcohol. And I gave lots of things away revolving around that book. So I have, in fact, if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see all these videos I made about how to use certain plants in certain cocktails. And they're very amateurish. I did this years ago with really minimal equipment, but whatever, I did the best I could. But I put out so much extra stuff between recipes that I wrote that went into for interviews, and plant descriptions, and like how to make a cocktail garden. So there's tons of stuff that I gave away for free. And I mean, that book is my bread and butter. That book continues to sell year after year after year. And it has been a great paycheck for me all this time. And so I definitely did not lose out by giving pieces of it away for free.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got a question from Dr. Ron. Can you use public domain video clips, such as an army marketing video, to augment his video? So are there like levels of licensing for
Yes,
Materials
there
like
are
that?
levels of licensing, and hopefully the video clips that you're using tell you what the level of licensing is. So if it's like, I mean, that's the nice thing about like Creative Commons licenses, which you'll very often see, is that you can actually read the definition and make absolutely sure that you're allowed to use it for what you need. But so yeah, there could be a very specific thing that connects to your topic, and that is the video you need, and you'll need to make sure on the licensing. If you need something more generic, like let's say you want a little bit of video footage of a child playing on a playground, then there's, again, just like we were talking about with the music, there's lots of royalty-free video sites where you can access videos, sort of like stock footage type of videos that you can
Mm,
use.
okay. Maureen said she was having trouble signing up for YouTube as a creator. Is it?
Well, so if you mean creating a YouTube account so you can upload your own videos, YouTube is owned by Google. So if you already have a Google account for any reason, then probably it's the same sign in. It's been so long since I did it. I mean, really, like over a decade ago. So I'm not sure what the sign up process looks like today, but it's probably integrated with your Google account if you have one. Maybe that'll help.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. Okay, thanks for sending in your questions, everybody. I think we've gotten to most of the ones that came in earlier, so I'm just kind of looking at the ones that have come in just now. Michelle says, thanks for the pointers about 2-author books. Do you have tips for a book video on a nonfiction book? It's a timely topic. It's called Healthcare Heroes. It's about careers in healthcare.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
so it's like a career panel of 28 different professionals. So how would you approach like a book that's a big project like that with a lot of
Oh,
people
that's
involved?
so cool. Yeah, boy, isn't that ever timely? I mean, so here's the thing. I think it is important to have a book video that is basically like your elevator pitch for the book, right? It is the one thing that anyone marketing your book can put in front of someone and go, this is what the book is. So that broad overview, and think about this being used in a lot of different ways. So think about your publisher possibly showing it at sales conference to a whole room full of sales reps who are listening to one book rollout after another over a long over a long day and probably a whole week of that. So you want something that'll kind of stand out, but it'll also give them the instant, like, I get it, I get what this book is, and I get who it's for. So that's fine, but because you've got 28 different healthcare options, it would be so cool to do a few more specific videos that dig into maybe some of the more surprising ones, some of the healthcare career possibilities that most of us don't think of right away and that are a bit more unusual, and get more specific with those, because that's the kind of thing. If someone's going to book you for, say, a radio interview, having that top level video that's sort of the elevator pitch, that's fine. But then they're thinking to themselves, well, how am I going to fill a half-hour interview with this? And so if you've done a few that really get into like a specific example of one of the more unusual and surprising ones, then they're thinking to myself, oh, this is something my listeners haven't heard of before. This is something we could really dig into, and it's a little bit surprising and unusual. I had never even heard of that career. So I might think about doing it that way.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Let's see here. I'm sure, as everyone wants to know, Carol asks, what have been good ways to get readers to see your video?
Yeah, so what's the best thing for me has been with book clubs, and you and I are going to do a webinar about working with book clubs. I think that's next week. I've done Skype chats with a few hundred book clubs over the years, and it's great for them. It's something quick that they can email out to their members, or they can watch together at the start of a book club meeting. So I think that's a really cool way for you to just appear at a book club meeting, even if you're not going to Skype with them or visit them in person or do anything like that. I think that's a really big, important way to get it in front of readers. But it also just helps with social media. You know, it's one thing to make a Facebook post and say, oh, my book's coming out, why don't you pre-order? But it's another thing to be able to put up a video that that gives people, you know, more of the behind the scenes about what you've been up to the last few years and how you've poured your heart and soul into this thing. And so using it when you're just on social media talking about your book, I think can be really helpful. But again, also keep in mind, there's so much more behind the scenes marketing that goes on when a book comes out. So, you know, your sales reps are, hopefully they're going to be going around to bookstores all over the country, and they're going to be emailing important accounts and dealing with the chains. And again, having a little quick video that they can either show to a major account or email to them just to say, I want you to really understand what this book is, because this author really knows her stuff, and we've never done anything like this before. And you know, look, she's very charismatic, and this is so interesting, and you can really grasp it. So, so I think there's also all those behind the scenes ways that other people can take the video and use it that you might not even see happening, but that is still going on with your publisher.
Mm-hmm. Donna says she's written a book about her journey as a domestic violence survivor. She's now a motivational speaker. She's wondering if you have thoughts on what she could make as a video. So, you know, dealing with a serious topic and all that.
Yeah, I know. It's tricky because you want people to watch it and you want them to share it, which means that ideally it's something where they can come away feeling inspired and motivated. And you're a motivational speaker, so you probably already know this about your talks, which is an audience, and I deal with this too, with the kind of talks that I give. An audience can take so much sort of heavy, serious, emotionally wrenching stuff from you before they want to laugh, and they want to feel a sense of relief, and they want to feel a sense that things are going to get better, so that they leave on an up note. And with a video, you've only got a minute or two to do that. So definitely you're going to have to look for the high moments and look for the triumphing over adversity moments to make the video be about, which might feel like it's giving short shrift to the very serious topic. I used to work in a battered women's shelter, so I'm like all over this topic. But I do think for the video, it's important to move into the uplifting. Here's how I survived, and it sounds like you're already doing that as a motivational speaker. So it's just a way of figuring out what is one specific thing, one specific story that I can actually do in a minute or two, where I can. So it's not too general. So I can do one little specific thing that gets at the topic, but also leaves people with a positive takeaway. And I'd be looking for a moment like that for the video.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I've seen a few people still asking for the link to the YouTube.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, it might be difficult to copy and paste out of the Zoom chat into a browser. So if nothing else, you can just Google Amy Stewart create a book video, and
yes.
I'm sure it'll come up right away.
It'll come right up. It's a playlist. There's 11 videos in all, and they're numbered, and you'll find the playlist, and it'll just auto play through them if you go to the playlist. So yeah, it's easy to find.
Yeah. It's a great series. It moves quickly, but it's very informative and detailed, but yeah, really bite-sized information, so it's easy to absorb. Jennifer asked a good question, that she's got a book trailer that she's going to have made for her, but a book video sounds like a different thing than a video. So a book video, book trailer, what's the difference?
Yeah, well, you know, and I was right there at the beginning of book trailers. I was lucky, I am lucky that I have a brother in Hollywood who knows how to do everything. So right as book trailers were starting, I was already making videos that my brother was doing on professional grade TV and movie equipment. So yeah, I think the first thing that happened was professionally produced book trailers. And those tended to be something that you couldn't make yourself, because it might be a 2-camera setup. It might be you walking through, you know, a museum or whatever, you know, walking through a place that connects with the book. And obviously you can't film all that yourself. So they were more professionally done and tended to be more than what I'm talking about, which is a talking head interspersed with film and video clips. But what changed, I think a couple things changed. One is that publishers realized that while book videos are helpful, they're expensive. It's expensive to do that. I mean, even my brother at family discount rates, he still had to rent a lot of equipment and sometimes hire an assistant, and it gets into the thousands of dollars even if you're getting the family rate. But so publishers, I think, kind of backed away from lavishly produced book trailers because they realized that it's competing for a limited pool of dollars. But then the other thing that happened is that pretty soon it got to where user-made videos were easier and higher quality. So what I'm talking about making a book video is now that we've reached the point that you can personally make a video that looks and sounds pretty professional, even with no camera operator, and no big mic boom and no fancy lights and all that. It's something that you can make essentially for free that can have almost as much impact as a professionally made book trailer, because they're all going to the same place, right? They're all going to the same YouTube. It's not like a professionally made book trailer gets to go on some better internet platform. There's been this democratization of video that's happened since that first wave of book trailers. So yeah, I mean, they are a little bit different in terms of what your options are. If you have a professional film crew following you around, you can shoot a lot more things than you can if you're just sitting or standing and looking into a camera like I am right now. But in terms of the delivery mechanism and what they're used for, that's kind of the same, really.
Great, great. Sarah asked if we'll share this recording afterward. Yes, Sarah, we will. Well, you know, the Authors Guild does some members only things, but the Authors Guild Foundation is, you know, a charitable organization to support all authors, guild members or not. So we do record it and share it on our YouTube, typically the next day, within a couple of days. We'll get that out to you, so everyone can watch it from the beginning if needed. Amber asked if you about using book videos when querying a book. If you do it ahead of time, can you
That's
use
interesting. Yeah, so I have not ever done that myself, but I've come close to that. I put a book proposal together a few years ago, actually, for my novels. My novels are based on a true story. And I decided that I wanted a really slick visual presentation for my book proposal. I didn't just want to send in a manuscript and a cover letter. So I hired a book designer to make this really beautiful PDF. It's an incredible design. And I hired one of the designers who had designed a previous book for me with a different publisher. And my agent kept saying, oh, I don't want you to spend your money. I don't think this is necessary. It's okay. But I'm like, no, no, no. I think visuals matter. Visuals matter. And sure enough, that proposal, it just kind of blew everybody's mind and they just got it instantly. And then the last book proposal I submitted, I put together an online slideshow. So there was no narration. It was a thing you had to click through, but same thing. I wanted them to be able to see the visuals of the historic photographs. So yeah, I actually think the next step up from that is to make a video. You know, here's who I am, and here's the subject matter, and here's why this is important, and here's what it all looks like, and here's what the research looks like, or the behind the scenes thing. Something that conveys, you know, your experience and what you bring to the book, and the real world research or setting or background that comes into it. I think absolutely, I see no reason in the world why that couldn't go with a book proposal. And hopefully it's something that your agent would be thrilled with and happy to see and happy to submit. But it would be worth talking to your agent about it. I mean, I had to push a little to get my agent to do anything visual and anything that I spent money on, but she did, and I'm glad she did, and I think it worked for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of agents and publishers would love to see you being proactive about, you know, this kind of marketing. Yeah. Jan asked if you ever charge a fee for Skype and Zoom presentations.
Oh, personally, no. So I do a ton of Skype chats with book clubs, and I don't charge for that. I have, from time to time, I do a Skype or Zoom presentation that's more like a class or a workshop or something like that, and someone maybe has a small honorarium for it. They've got a couple $100 or something, or you know, something along those lines. But I don't consider it really a business model at all. I'm doing the Skype chats because I want to build an audience for my books, and it's something I can do without leaving home. So it's easy for me to do, and it's actually the most enjoyable thing I do to promote my books. So I'm happy to do it. But in general, something like a book club generally is not going to they're not going to want to pay, or if they do, it's going to be such a small amount of money that it might not be worth the hassle to collect it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. Susanna says her book always generates questions. Would you suggest she posts contact info inside the video or just under the video? Do you do yeah, I guess if it's like a YouTube, you can caption it below the
Right.
video.
If it's YouTube, you can either add a caption or you can put it in the description. You can say, contact me for questions. But remember, people can also post comments on the YouTube video. So you could get in and start interacting with people on YouTube if you want. In fact, that has happened a little bit with this how to make a book video class. People have posted questions under some of those videos, and I've just gone in and answered them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Carol asks if you can include the video on your book's Amazon page. Yeah, that's an option in Amazon Author Central.
It's an option. So here's the deal.
But they own it or something like that?
No, they don't own it. But if it's going to be, if it's going to be in the, and I can't remember what it's called, but it's called something like From the Publisher or something like that. Amazon charges the publisher money to put the video up. So your publisher is going to have to decide whether they think that's a good return on their investment. And it might not be. And your publisher might be smart to not want to spend the money on that. So that's like a conversation you have to have with your publisher. There's another option on Amazon where anyone can upload user-generated videos about a book. And I've actually tried that. So I tried it with my Girl Waits with Gun video to upload it. And it always says, oh, we have to wait, and we have to, our content team has to review this first, and it never actually turned up on the page. So it's not that easy to do. And to be honest, if it was a big money maker, Amazon would let you do it for free. The fact that they charge for it implies that it maybe doesn't sell books, and Amazon sees it as a revenue stream that they can get publishers and or authors to give them money, but that maybe it doesn't actually move product, because Amazon is very optimized to move product. And if they thought videos moved product, I think they would make it very free and easy for people to put videos up.
I see.
That's my take on it anyway.
Yes. Edith asks if trailers and videos are doable for fiction books. So do you think that they're better suited to a certain genre, or just a different thing for different genres?
No, I mean, I've written 6 nonfiction books and 6 novels, and I have a video for each of them. In fact, I think it's more helpful for fiction in a way, because I think, people, readers, whoever, forget that, you wrote this novel, but you wrote it out of probably some real world experiences or some real world research. And you've got interesting behind the scenes stories that you can tell that tend to get lost, because with a novel, everyone sort of wants to talk about the plot, but there's so much more than the plot. So yeah, I would absolutely do it for fiction.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Someone just asked about copyright info to IP, to protect the IP of your content. Yeah, do you have to copyright these videos? Your videos?
Of course, Authors Guild has lawyers, and I'm not a lawyer, but in general, the minute you make something, you own the copyright to it. And it would be up to someone else to have to prove that you don't own the copyright to it. And, how are they possibly going to do that? So, you've put it up there, you've put your name on it, the chances of someone stealing it, I mean, Nike's not going to take your ad and use it to sell tennis shoes with. Or if they did, you'd have a wonderful case against them. I don't worry about that at all.
Yes, okay. Okay, that makes sense. All right. Well, gosh, these have been a lot of great questions.
Yeah.
Amy, is there anything else you wanted to go over?
No, I think that I'm just looking at the questions that we got earlier to make sure that there's nothing else that we skipped over. Somebody did ask about making videos in multiple languages. Somebody asked about making one in French as well as in English, and like, absolutely. If if you are able to make a book video that markets your book to another country and in another language, you're my hero. So please go do that. There's absolutely every reason to think about your foreign markets. I have a couple of books myself that have done surprisingly well in foreign markets, and I wish I knew ways to reach them a little bit better. So jump in there.
Mm-hmm. I have a question.
Oh.
Do you add closed captioning to your videos? And if so, did you have it just automatically generated, or can you type them so that they're accurate instead of,
Right. Yeah. No, I have not done it, but YouTube does make that very easy, and YouTube will, if you let it, do its auto-generated closed captions, which I believe you can review and correct. Or they have a section, and this is in the video upload process. You go through like a couple of different screens, and there is a screen for uploading closed captions, so you can put them in yourself as well. And if you've written a script, in my class, I encourage people to write a script and use a teleprompter. And the reason I encourage that is that you don't have as many ums and ahs and verbal stumbles if you're reading from a script. But another great thing about a script is that those are your closed captions, right? You've already got it. And so it's more of a copy and paste job because it's already been written out ahead of time.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Maureen asks if you would critique her video if she sends it to you.
Well, post a link to it in, on YouTube or email it to me and I'll take a look. But, I'm no expert, so I don't know that. Probably who you need a critique from really is your agent or your editor or your writers group, or whoever knows you and your material best is probably a better person to do that than me.
That's a good point. Yes. If Amy gets 300 videos emailed to her tomorrow, she's not going to have time to review all of them.
I know.
But that's neat. Yeah. She says she made it after watching your series, so that's cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I'm so glad that people are doing it. That's great.
I would say don't ask the opinion from someone extremely close to you, because they'll just say it's great no matter what.
They better, especially right now when they're locked in a house with you and nobody can leave. Yeah.
Yeah. Mary Louise asked if you have a what not to put in a book video list.
Yeah, well,
that's a good idea.
Right. So like I said, I would say what not to include is a lengthy bio of yourself. Just say, hi, I'm Amy Stewart and this is my book. That's plenty. And also the sort of publisher's copy, the dust jacket copy or the catalog copy. There's no reason to just read that out loud. In general, I think a plot summary is best avoided. I don't think a plot summary, people can find the plot summary of your book somewhere else. And the same is true for a nonfiction book or like a self-help book or whatever. That kind of sales pitchy summary, that's already available. So what can you do that does not include? And I think that means diving into specifics. Like if you have written a self-help book, it might be these like 3 parenting tips or the weirdest thing that happened when you do research. I often find I go to a lot of author events because I'm in Portland. I'm right down the street from Powell's. So I go to a lot of author events, and every author has that weird story that's kind of random and might not seem totally related to the book, but they tell it and it cracks everybody up. And it's the one thing that I go home and tell my friends about so-and-so's author event the night before. It's that one crazy story. So like, that's the video. That's the good stuff right there, even if it doesn't seem quite as sales pitchy as everything else. And again, I think if you go out and give a lot of talks, you probably already know that part of your talk that makes the audience kind of perk up, like that one thing that makes them go, oh, that's the thing. Like that is what the video ought to be.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, I think we're about ready to wrap up, if that's okay with you, Amy.
Okay.
If anyone else wants to put in a last minute question, that's great. But again, if you haven't watched the course yet, do look for it on YouTube.
Yep.
Amy Stewart, Stewart, and it's called Create Your Own Book Video, a step-by-step guide.
Yes.
So shouldn't be hard to find.
Right.
And next Tuesday, we're doing another webinar where Amy will talk about book clubs, online book clubs and in-person book clubs. So again, great stuff for right now, but also for the future. We'll talk about all that. And it sounds like book clubs are one of the best applications for these videos. So we can kind of extend the conversation.
Yes, for sure. Great. All
All
right. Well,
right.
thanks everybody. This
All
was
right.
really fun. And yeah, we'll do book clubs next week.
All right, Amy, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks to everyone who joined us from the Authors Guild. We're really glad to have you. And as always, you can contact us at authorsguild.org at any time with any questions, and we'll be in touch. And look out for her Amy's webinar next Tuesday. You can find that on our site under events, I believe. Of
Good.
course. All right. Thanks, Amy. Thanks,
All
everyone.
right.
Good
Thanks
evening.
everybody. Bye-bye.